Hello, and welcome to the Maine GIS Users Group Virtual Lunch and Learn. I'm Patrick Cunningham, and along with Judy Colby-George, we will be your moderators for this first ever virtual MEGUG Brown Bag Luncheon. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. As you probably heard, all attendees are in listen-only mode, but if you have questions for Claire or any of us, please just use the questions panel and we will do our best to answer them. We should be able to field your questions live as we're presenting. Hopefully everything will go off without a hitch and we won't have any technical issues, but if we do, we ask your patience and understanding. This is the first time we're doing this as the Maine GIS Users Group. I'm excited to have Claire Kiedrowski here to present for us. She's going to give us an update on the Maine GeoLibrary Board and on the Maine Geospatial data for 2020. Just wanted to give you a background a little bit on the Maine GIS user group if you're new to our organization. We are an all-volunteer organization, and we've been running as an organization for over a couple of decades now. Maine GIS Users Group is a nonprofit that promotes awareness of and encourages the coordinated development and effective use of geographic information and related technologies. We focus on our efforts in the areas of policy, liaisons, networking, research, education, and public relations. And our goal is to facilitate discussions and exchange of information on GIS, geography, and all things mapping. Of course, we need to thank our sponsors. Our gold sponsors are Quantum Spatial, Blue Marble Geographics, and Esri. And our board members are made up of a variety of folks from all over Maine. As you can see the list here, we have folks from private industry and state government and local government and education. If you're interested in being more involved in GIS and the Maine GIS Users Group, please let us know. You can reach us at megug.org. Our email is megugboard@gmail.com. We do have a variety of committees we run, and we look to have all kinds of folks help us with those committees. And certainly if you're interested in running for the board, we hold elections every year for half of the seats. So if you'd like more information on that, please let us know. And just to give you a little more insight into some of the things that we're working on in the time of this pandemic, we've sort of done a pivot, as many organizations have, and we're now starting to offer online events. This is the first of our virtual Brown Bag Luncheon series, and we will be offering one next month as well. And that you can see is the Maine Climate Council's Coastal and Marine Working Group. Very excited to have Claire Angeline present on this organization. We're also looking to have one in July, which would be an update on the new GeoLibrary data portal interface from MEGUG. And we're looking for other topics and areas of interest for folks to continue the series into the months beyond that, until we can get back to a point where we can have face-to-face conferences. Or who knows, maybe these will be so popular that we will continue them on indefinitely. At this point, I'd like to hand over the introduction to Judy, our vice chair, who's our program manager.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a great day. I just wanted to give a little background on Claire, who since January of 2019 has been working part-time as the executive director for the Maine Library of Geographic Information, where she manages 2 statewide data acquisition projects, LiDAR and Ortho Imagery, which she's going to talk about today, and as well as providing the education and outreach to various entities, whether those be city, county, state, municipal, or others, on the benefits of the statewide data acquisition projects. In addition, she manages the agenda and logistics for the Maine GeoLibrary board meetings, which are available to the public to listen in on. So if people have an interest in that, feel free to let us know and we will connect you up. And with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Claire.
Okay, I'm going to make Claire the presenter now.
All right.
You should be able to present.
Yes. Okay, so what you should be seeing right now is my first slide, MEGUG Virtual Lunch and Learn. How's that? Is that showing up?
It is.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. Well, I'm Claire Kiedrowski, and like Judy said, I've been the Executive Director for the Maine Library of Geographic Information since January 2019. And my goal today is to give you an update on the geospatial data that is occurring for 2020. There's a lot going on, so let's get to the next slide. All right, so my agenda today is to just go over 3 data sets. One is the Ortho Imagery, where we'll just quickly look at what's an ortho photo and how it's created. And then what's the latest aerial imagery, where is it located, and when is it going to be available. We'll do the same thing with LiDAR, light detection and ranging, what it is, how is it acquired, and what is the planned LiDAR acquisition for 2020, and where is it going to be, and when is it going to be available. And then I have some information about land cover and what the opportunities are for the state of Maine. So, many of us know that an ortho photograph, an ortho image, is an aerial image that's been corrected for relief displacement, and that the scale across the entire image is uniform. Okay, and this is going to be important because that's how LiDAR actually helps create a better ortho photo. So, so an ortho photo, the aircraft has a camera, a specific metric camera in the belly of the aircraft, and it takes images under ideal conditions. We combine that with airborne GPS and along with ground control for georeferencing. And then we get a digital surface model or a digital terrain model. It could come from a variety of sources. And this is how we, end up getting a corrected ortho photo that's been corrected for relief displacement. So they look like the original raw image looks very similar to what the final product is, but this final product allows us to take reliable information and get reliable measurements from it. Okay, so one of the things that I just wanted to point out to you, and many of you already know this, so just bear with me, thank you for indulging me, is that the quality of the surface, so the surface, I mean the digital terrain model, the digital surface model, the contours, the LiDAR, bare earth, whatever the source is very important when we're orthorectifying the aerial image. So you can see on the one on the left, the poor digital terrain model, if the DTM isn't congruent with the surface features, the planimetric features that you see here, then there could be waviness. We see this frequently with bridges and things like that. That's because with a bridge, that's being corrected to the earth, but not to where the bridge is. So over here, on this side, we actually have a corrected digital terrain model, or one that is congruent with the planimetric features, in this case, a road. So the Maine GeoLibrary actually has a program, a 5-year, 6-year program that is the intent is to cover the entire state of Maine. And in the spring of 2020, we focused on Hancock County. So the way it works is if the county participates in an aerial image initiative, the GeoLibrary will help fund by paying 2/3 of the cost for acquiring 18-inch ground sample distance or pixel orthophotography. when a county participates, that means that the municipalities within that county can buy up to increase pixel resolution for a substantial savings. So there's no cost matching funds for the communities that are participating. It's just the county. So in this case, Hancock County has purchased 18-inch imagery. So the entire county is going to be flown this spring with 18-inch pixel resolution. That's, you know, 1.5 feet. Hancock County unorganized territories have purchased 12-inch. So this is very exciting. Okay, so all of Hancock County, including the UTs, will be covered with quality spring leaf-off imagery. Bar Harbor, Mount Desert, Bridgeton, Naples, China, Cushing, and Old Town, they all bought up to 6-inch imagery. So 6-inch pixel resolution. In my mind, 6-inch is one of the best workhorses, one of the best values. And then Portland upgraded to 3-inch. So Portland and Old Town aren't in Hancock County. Hope you noticed that. But those counties had participated in the past, so that's why they were eligible to redo this. This was flown, all of this imagery was flown by Wolpert, our contractor, the state of Maine's contractor, flight acquisition provider, under ideal conditions. I don't know if you remember April 23rd and April 25th, but it was beautiful. It's much like today. Clear skies, bright sunny day, leaves, you know, leaf off conditions, no snow. It's just gorgeous. So all of this imagery has gone through quality control, and you know, they're moving forward, ortho rectifying.
Claire, do you find what do you find is the most difficult thing to explain to municipalities in regards to the value of the data collection program?
Well, one of the things I think is they, you know, all of us could just do a better job of making sure that everyone is aware of the program. I think they just need to plan well in advance. And I think also that the pricing can be daunting for some of these communities. I get that. When I was a representative of Kappa Mapping and had my own business where we would be orthorectif, you know, doing this similar work, there's no way that I could get the prices that Wolpert, that this current project is offering for this program. For example, yeah. So I think it's just really making sure that everyone understands that there's economic benefits to working with this imagery. You know, I'm from Skowhegan, and you're surprised at how much change, you know, I haven't lived in Skowhegan in years and years, and you're surprised at how much does change in 2 or 3 years. Things really do need to get updated. And it's also just a really nice historical reference to have. You know, what did it look like in 2005? What did it look like in 2012?
So,
ideally,
Claire, we have I'm sorry to interrupt. We have a question, if I may. Will Lost GeoTIFF 2020 orthos for Hancock County be available to download from the MEGUS data catalog, or will downloads be limited to lossy JPEGs?
All the data will be delivered to the communities that paid for them, and it'll also be available on the Maine office's GIS website for download, but preferably for online, web mapping service.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Ideally, what we would like is to have communities and counties to plan ahead and, perhaps do it every 5 years, every 10 years, that sort of thing, to make it, part of their budget planning process. So my next couple of slides that I have are just some comparisons. This happens to be in Algonquin. This is what 3-inch looks like at a 1-to-1 ratio. Obviously, with software, your mapping software, or you can zoom in further, okay? But this is the best resolution at the 1-to-1 ratio. So you can see that there's so much detail. You can see practically what kind of car there is. You can see manholes, what's written on the paint stripes, And you know, what's great with these leap-off conditions is, and the spring photography is that spring photography is clear, crisp, and bright. All right. On the right, we have 6-inch. Like I said, in my mind, I think the 6-inch is like the best value and you know, the workhorse. You can still see tons of details. This is comparable for back in the day when people would do 100 scale mapping, 2-foot contours from this type of imagery. Obviously, like I said, you can easily zoom in and look at increased resolution. So I don't have the 12-inch and the 18-inch, but I do have 3, 6, and 24-inch. When we first started the program, the counties actually got 2-foot pixel resolution. But you know, better sensors can fly higher and get better pixel resolutions or better ground sample distance. Those are similar terms for, you know, how big's the pixel. So back in the day when I made this slide, we were actually offering 24-inch. So you can kind of just see what you get here in terms of clarity and in terms of, you know, 24-inch, 18-inch, that's really great for regional. 6-inch, 3-inch is really great for economic development and planning and for municipalities to use. But, you know, anything is always really helpful to have. So this is just a graphic. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, we had another question.
No, I'm glad. It's hard not to see your faces.
Yeah. Would you be able to explain who the Geospatial Reserve Fund works for, how it works for towns and town budgeting?
Sure. That's a really great question. Thank you. So we have a Geospatial Reserve account, which is an area where where municipalities or other funders can kind of hold their money. So say you know that you want a spring flight in the spring of 2022. You can start stashing your funds in the Geospatial Reserve account. You know, we work out a memorandum of agreement. The state of Maine works out a memorandum of agreement with you, and that is tracked for that specific purpose. And that is like sort of a placeholder where communities can just sort of stash that so that they don't lose it for the next year. That's also where we put, you know, when we get grants and whatnot for our LiDAR, which I'll be talking about in a little bit. Have I answered that enough to your satisfaction or to our questioner's satisfaction? Oh, I can see you nodding your head. No, I'm teasing.
As far as it sounds like you got it to me, and I'm getting a yes from the participants. So,
thank you. You're too good to me. So what we're looking at right now is sort of just a graphic. What we've got here is Portland is the 3-inch. Bridgeton and Naples are 6-inch. China is 6-inch, as is Cushing. And these were all left over from the spring of 2019. We had bad weather in 2019, okay? And they just did not get able to be flown. So, you know, they were a priority. Here we've got Old Town. Old Town is part of Penobscot County, and Penobscot County is participating. I'll come back to that in a second. Here is the 12-inch for the unorganized territories for Hancock County, and you can see that they butt match nicely with the 18-inch of Hancock County regular. In addition, we've actually got Ellsworth and Mount Desert and Bar Harbor at 6-inch. Okay. I wanted to mention when you asked me about the Geospatial Reserve account, Penobscot County actually, is making use of that. So none of the communities could participate in Penobscot County if the county was not participating. But they said, you know, we really don't, even with the 2/3 match from the state, we just don't have those funds. You know, because remember, I started in January of 2019, and we were going to fly in spring of 2019, not much time. So we worked it out that they could start storing their funds, and so they're actually paying over time. And so that allowed certain communities to participate. Some did last year in Penobscot County. That was, I think, Hamden and in Bangor and Brewer, and this year is Old Town. So once a county participates, the municipality can participate in a future year, okay? Our program, like I said, ends in the spring of 2022. So there's next spring, 2021, and spring of 2022. So, okay, so I'm segueing to my next section on LiDAR. Any questions or comments so far? Looks like you're keeping me up to speed. Am I right, Patrick? Okay, so I'm going to segue to LiDAR, and this is.
Sorry about that, Claire.
Okay, so LiDAR stands for light detection and ranging. You know, you may also hear of it as laser scanning. That's usually on the ground. Okay, and this combines itself with airborne GPS, global positioning systems, and inertial measurement unit, which is kind of the roll, tip, and yaw of the aircraft. Same thing that the aerial photography aircraft has as well. And is you know, in this case, the LiDAR combines with the airborne GPS and IMU data and time and records an elevation of a point. Okay, it's an active sensor. The previous technology that we talked about was a passive sensor. You needed light, okay, ideal conditions, that sort of thing. This is you know, in this case, is sending a laser pulse to the ground, recording how long it takes to come back, and with post-processing and the airborne GPS IMU data is able to determine an elevation. Okay, there's lots of uses for LiDAR, but in our case, we're interested in getting a bare earth, and bare earth can then be used to generate contours. So a digital terrain model, right? And I already told you how interesting that is for when we're orthorectifying the aerial imagery. So in an ideal world, we would get the LiDAR first and then the aerial imagery, because one is built on top of the other. So here's just two examples of, one is a shaded relief, you know, that's a raster IMG, and down below is a contour map. These are two different geographic areas. I'm just demonstrating, you know, what you can do with the different sources. Most of us are geospatial experts, so going through these, my focus really in sharing information with you is what's available through the GeoLibrary in the spring of 2020. So here's just some additional information where you can get a cross section and you can see the lay of the land here, and this is exaggerated 5 times. Okay, so this is a little old news. What we're looking at right now is the Crown of Maine LiDAR, and this is a broad area. This data is complements of the United States Geological Survey, as well as many state funders, and by state I mean a number of funders throughout the state of Maine who were able to provide matching funds to what USGS was able to provide. So this is really, you know, so the state of Maine aerial imagery program is really a state program. This is really a USGS program, and we're able to take advantage of that by getting matching funds. So in the spring of 2018, Quantum Spatial, the service provider, the aerial service provider, was able to get block 1, all right? And they had issues with quality as well as sensor, and this interior area, which is labeled block 2, did not pass quality control. So, you know, here we had all this data and a big hole right in the middle. It was acquired in spring of 2019, okay, and I'm glad to say that all of this has gone through automated processing, interactive editing, adding break lines, quality control, and it has finally gone to the United States Geological Survey as of mid-April 2020. And what that means is they're going to now review it. They'll probably have questions or comments that'll be pushed back to the contractor. You can't have this volume of data without asking 1 or 2 or finding something. Their contract with the state, so USGS has a contract with the state, was extended to November 15th, 2020. And we're all hoping that that really is the last time that we have to push this forward. Okay, so what that means is hopefully that USGS would be able to have this data, this LiDAR data, available in late 2020, probably more likely spring of 2021. Okay, so first it gets put onto their website and access, and then some of the derivative products get put on the main office of GIS and access. So, all right, so that's old news. What's new news is that we applied for an additional grant to replace what we call quality level 3. So the quality levels are a way of defining how good this data is and what it can be used for. Like we have pixel resolutions to define the aerial imagery program, we have quality levels. That's something that was, you know, is sort of standard verbiage. So most of the LiDAR data along the coast of Maine is either quality level 3, so sparse point spacing, from 2006 to 2010 timeframe, 2011, and or 8 years old or older. Okay, so just, you know, back in the day, the technology was not what it is now. So the technology just had, you know, a coarser point spacing. So USGS with NRCS was able to fund this large geographic area. It's over 2,700 square miles of LiDAR data. And this is based on their areas of interest and the criteria of older than 8 years or quality level 3. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. All right, so what do we have here? All of this data is being flown under low tide conditions. Okay, so that was part of the criteria that USGS and NRCS requested. And that means that we'll get tidal information, we'll get the mud flats, okay, which is pretty exciting. So this pink right here represents some quality level 1. This is for the town of York. They helped fund this geographic area. This green area is will be tidally coordinated, as well as this pink area, and that's why it's green. It's going to be it's this bright green. It's using the tide gauge from wells. This cyan pale blue color, it will be tidally coordinated. We're using head of tide information. That's why it's going up in here. And we'll use the Portland tidal gauge. All right. And then this orange back in the back here is just not tidally coordinated. So let me review just a little bit more. This hot pink area, quality level 1. What quality level 1 means is that there's more points per square meter. And in this case, there's 8 points per square meter. Okay. And that can be used for resource grade 1-foot contours. Okay. You can actually maybe get, it's, you know, more points per square meter, so more detail that you have in that data set. The standard is quality level 2, that's 2 points per square meter, and that's what all the rest of this is here, okay? So the way this would work is they're literally in Maine now looking to fly. They want, you know, ideal conditions. You know, we do like nice weather. The weather is not as important, or the sun and clouds is not as important as it is with spring aerial photography, but it's still pretty important. We can't have, you know, a windstorm, can't be too windy. We still want, you know, relatively good weather, and the tides have to be, you know, at low tide, plus or minus 2 hours. Okay, so that's hopefully in progress as we speak. So what questions or comments do you have in terms of LiDAR? That's all I have, and I just have 1 or 2 more slides.
I have a question for you about the LiDAR. I was doing a project where I was downloading some data, and there were some sort of random missing tiles.
Thank you. That is great. That's a really good question. So, you know, in this case, we're not the client. United States Geological Survey is the client, and USGS has a policy where they have gone to tribal nations And if tribal nation, so any area that covers, you know, a tribal native, you know, location, those entire tiles are eliminated and not made available. So the state of Maine is just following what USGS has decided to do. And if a nation requests that we take that off and that not be available, then that's what gets done. So.
And is the GeoLibrary Board going to work with the tribal nations to maybe provide contact information if people want to get that data to complete a project?
So yeah, that's another great question too. Thank you. So the intent, and I didn't really address it because we haven't done it yet, but the intent is to reach out and to explain the situation, perhaps provide the data to them so that they could decide whether they wanted to handle that or not. I'm sorry, my mom called me, so I'm gonna reach that. Okay. There she is. Bye, Mom. So that's in progress, and you know, I encourage you just to keep in touch, and you know, that will have to be their decision. So in the state of Maine, it's the Passamaquoddy tribal nation that has determined that they would prefer not to have that. They have specifically requested that. So that's something that happens nationwide. All right. Okay. So I'm going to move on, and just the last thing that I wanted to view is that the GeoLibrary has added to their supported projects. I mean, you know, obviously we're geospatial data geeks. We're happy to support anything, parcels, land cover, bathymetric LiDAR, satellite imagery. It's all great. But we decided that we would, you know, we had a number of presentations. There's been a push to look at land cover because I'm not sure if you're aware, but the last land cover data set was the Maine land cover data set 5-meter resolution, which was produced in 2004, and it's not been updated since. Well, one of the reasons that I'm interested in a land cover data set was that it would be, that this program would be, and this is a program that we're developing, okay? Nothing's been set in stone. We're still looking for funding. We're still, you know, figuring some stuff out. But what's exciting about the land cover is that it wouldn't be just a geographic region. Hey, what about what's going on in, you know, in Machias? Hey, what's going on in, you know, Aroostook County? What about Oxford? This would be statewide. The entire state would be done at one time. And, you know, they're looking, you know, NOAA, the data owners would be the GeoLibrary, the NOAA Office for Coastal Management, the University of Maine system. And what we're looking at doing is, you know, is having both 1 meter and data to 1 meter data with a variety of different classes that you see here. Okay, we'd also have 10-meter resolution for forestry typing. Okay, and you know, this would, you know, we're looking for potential funders from state of Maine, appropriation perhaps, state agencies, University of Maine system, private foundations, nonprofits. You know, Jamie Carter from NOAA Office for Coastal Management's involved, Casey Lagarde, UMaine Intelligent Geosolutions, and Tony Guay of the University of Maine of Wheatland Geospatial Lab is also involved. So this is sort of a newer program that we're starting to develop to hopefully get folks interested and funds to work with in the near future. So ideally, we would get it on an update cycle of, you know, every 4 to 6 years. And that update cycle kind of would reduce costs of the initial project cost, and it would also be part of the NOAA Coastal Change Analysis Program, that CCAP program, so that we would take advantage of their program for to, you know, have it cost less. So I just did a whirlwind through some of the interesting data sets that are coming and hopefully coming this year and in the years to come. So I welcome your comments and questions.
I'm going to take back control of the screen. Does anyone have any questions for Claire on her presentation or the GeoLibrary board? Or oh, is my screen showing okay? We do have some questions coming in. Claire, can you hear me okay?
Sure.
Is there a list of agencies that are using your data?
Well, I would say the Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry, Maine Geological Survey. Is that you mean state agencies?
I'm not sure.
Or do you mean all of?
Or that question coming from Dwight. Maybe Dwight, you could clarify. While we're waiting to hear back from Dwight, which counties are on deck in the next 2 years?
Well, if you go to the Maine GeoLibrary website, which is maine.gov/geolib, so GEOLIB, there is a pull down called projects, and on that there's one that's called Ortho Project. It's actually the last one, all right? And you know, ideally the intent was to do 2 or 3 counties every year, okay? And we've gotten off track on that, all right? So, so we don't have that. You know, there are counties that have not ever participated. I am going to be looking at Franklin and Somerset and Piscataquis and Oxford. And I mean, I'm going to actually reach out to all the counties. So we have 2 more years for this program. I'll be reaching out to all the ones that haven't participated yet, which is Aroostook, or haven't participated ever, or haven't participated in this last Ortho Imagery program, which started in 2017. And those are Aroostook, Franklin, Oxford, Penobscot actually is going to be flown in spring of 2022, Piscataquis, Somerset, Waldo, I'd have to check, and Washington. So I welcome anybody that can assist me in getting the county to participate. I'm, you know.
Sure.
Claire, is there a pricing sheet on the GeoLibrary website for towns for general budgeting purposes?
Yes, there is. And actually, if you give me back control, I'll show that.
There you go.
Okay. So, you know, here I just came to home and I went to projects and I went to Ortho Project. And, you know, there's a story map here. We'll just wait for that to view. So this left right here, this is information. This is a really great place to go. This is information about what these, you know, what's going on with land cover, what's going on with LiDAR, and what's the Ortho Project. It's not where you get data, okay? It's about it, all right? But, you know, there's information here. There's some program summaries of how it works, okay? And then let's just take a look at Hancock County. So all of these bring up PDFs. And here we found that Hancock County is over 1,800. It's 1,810 miles. The big price is $97,000. You know, I get why this is tough. But the state kicked in $65,000 and the county ends up with 32, right? So right here, then we can see that, you know, Bar Harbor, who is participating at 6 inch, they're paid $9,500. This, you know, when I was with Kappa Mapping, there's no way that we could acquire aerial imagery, do the ground control, process the error triangulation, orthorectify all the images, get a good surface model, orthorectify all the images, mosaic them, and then color balance them and tile them out for $9,500. So this, you know, there's one of the reasons that this is such a great program is that there's the bulk pricing, okay? Now, you might say, hey, how come my community is 56 square miles? It really isn't. That's because we're doing the full tile, and that way there's never any gaps with your neighbor, okay? There's, there's never any gaps, all right? So that's where that number comes from, okay? So you could just go back and you could look at something else. Is there one that you'd like to look at? And I'm happy to go over this with you. One of the things we didn't do is the slides. This is how you get hold of me. Okay? I've had this cell phone for quite some time with all my jobs, okay? But it's claire.kiedrowski@maine.gov. And you can also find that by just going to the GeoLibrary website. So I'm happy to discuss this, even what if games. Because one of the things I was also thinking about is...
Claire, I'm going to take back control because I think it might be creating a little bit of an echo, if that's okay. Didn't mean to cut you off. Can I ask, we have a couple other interesting questions. Is there any estimate for a timeline when land cover data will be available on the GeoLibrary if funded? 1 year or longer?
Say that again, please.
Is there any estimate for a timeline when land cover data would be available on the GeoLibrary board if funded?
Oh, we're still working on, I would say, yeah, I don't have that information. Let me just take a look, see if I can quickly.
Okay. And we will have these available, Claire, where I can give them to you afterward, and you could, contact the person with the answer too, if it's a little bit hard to find it.
Claire, when do you think Hancock County's data is going to be delivered and available?
The Hancock County, the plan is to do quality control over the, orthorectify quality control over the summer. And then the way it works is there's 3-inch, 6-inch, 12-inch, and 18-inch. In that order will get delivered. The late summer, early fall, it should be available for viewing only through Wolpert's Viewline, but it'll be publicly available by the end of the year. So the end of, December.
There's a question here about whether our Ortho Photo program is connected to the NAEP data collection. And then a second question regarding NAEP, because rumors have been rampant about it. Is NAEP going to continue? And what kind of rotation and access is there going to be? If you know the answer to that question, you may not.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So NAEP is a federal program, as you know, and the state isn't participating in that. That's something that the federal does. So NAEP is high altitude imagery, and it's usually leaf on, right? So it's actually a different set of specifications. It's very useful for leaf on conditions. You can get to see crops, you get to see what what full foliage, if you can, if you're good, you could probably figure out some of the tree types, that sort of thing. That's been traditionally used for some of these counties that are, haven't participated in the Leaf Off State of Maine program. And it's, kind of our stopgap measure. Well, at least you got, have NAEP. I can't speak to, what the federal government is going to decide to do. I mean, ideally, I'd love to have the entire state covered with leaf off conditions, because there's a wealth of information in between the trees, right? When you can see the bare earth. So I'm not able to answer what's going to happen to that program.
Okay. So you did say that our ortho program only runs for 2 more years. What happens after that?
Well, this is a great question. There's a geospatial work group, which is sort of a subcommittee of the Maine Library of Geographic Information, the GeoLibrary. And it's headed by Dan Walters, our USGS liaison. And there are board members and then non-board members that are involved. And we're actually talking about what that next program is going to look like. Is it unrealistic to ask the counties to participate? Should we do, should we have a different designation? Should we just, in terms of, the area of interest, should we, the aerial service providers just want, in some cases may just want a minimum spending amount. Hey, can you spend 300,000? Okay, we'll come up and we'll fly wherever. Should we, what should that look like? Should we go out and look at satellite imagery? Should we not make it 4 bands? Where are there other cost savings? So if you want to participate, let me know, and we meet once a month. I think it's the second Thursday of the month from 2 to 4. And we're actively thinking about what would that next request for proposal look like for the next program. What we found is that anybody that participates in the program really likes it because, let's face it, the aerial imagery, everybody gets it. When it's local, you're interested. Hey, that's where I live. That's my community. This is what we can do with this. Hey, look at that. I mean, you just get it. So we found that anybody that participates in the past is a repeat customer. So, and they'll find a way. We've tried to make it as cost effective as possible, but still having quality. So, some other things, could it be less horizontally accurate? Would that be acceptable? Do we want to go to satellite imagery? So I'd welcome your input. You're welcome to participate or just share your thoughts or, provide your constructive feedback.
So
that's where we're at.
In regards to the agencies that use the GeoLibrary data, it's any agency that needs geospatial data, correct? Like DOT or DEP or Maine Emergency Management Agency?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep, the Department of Transportation, Environmental Protection, Department of Marine Resources, Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, subsets within that. Even economic development, right? It's nice to have a nice map to do certain queries. So yes, I'm happy to, provide a list of everybody. I just, I'm kind of blanking a little.
No problem. So, I would say.
I'm sorry.
I'm thinking.
Anybody.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say all the agencies can find a use for it, really, right? Don't you find that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Everyone that needs to do business or manage any kind of asset needs geospatial data today. We have another interesting question. So when communities exercise the buy-up options for ortho imagery, what do they do with the additional products provided by the buy-up options? What do we?
So the buy-up options include, you could reproject, it's going to come in Universal Transverse Mercator, UTM, zone 19 meters. And what's nice about all of that is that the entire state of Maine is covered in that, it is in that one zone. If you're a surveyor or an engineer or other specialist, you might be interested in state plane coordinates, which are traditionally in U.S. survey feet. So you can, and different zones. So you can buy up and have your raw data reprojected to a different coordinate system. You could also purchase stereo pairs. And the stereo pairs allow photogrammetrists, back in the day, that's what I would provide you with stereo mapping for planimetric features. They tend to be highly accurate, especially from the 3-inch and 6-inch imagery. So that would be a way to update your planimetrics. You could also get contours from that rather than LiDAR. In today's world, you might just use the ortho and the LiDAR data and do heads-up digitizing, but I'm from a traditionalist, so I still think photogrammetry is the way to go. So you can purchase stereo pairs. And you can also, if you want to have the images local, rather than having them tiled, you could have a compressed image, so compress all those images together and put it in one format so that you just have one big image at a reduced disk size, and we use LizardTech's Mr. SID compression to do that. Now, the issue with that is that you need to have specialized mapping software that will be able to read this SID compressed image. But it means you only have one image to open up, and it does your entire community. And there can also be tidal coordination too. So that means that you would get aerial imagery with low tide, and you'd get to see the mud flats, if that's of interest.
I would add to that, Claire, that the towns that I work with, if they get 3-inch photography, they can easily pull off manholes, drainage structures. It saves them a lot of field work because they can get fairly accurate results from a desktop survey, and then they only have to identify places where those things are blocked, where they have to go out in the field to collect data. So it's really useful. They can get, I've done street trees, especially if there's a little shadow, you can pull out the trees, the poles, things like that. So, and you can do that with the 6-inch too. You can't see, manholes get a little harder to identify from general grease stains in the road at the 6-inch level. But the 3-inch for places where there's utilities seem to make a big difference in data collection.
That's right. Yep, the 3-inch really, if you need all this, what we call kind of the street furniture, all those point features, you know, they show up very, very clearly. What happens with the 6-inch is that you'll see most of them, you just won't see all of them, okay? And things like gate valves, forget it. But, you know, you can still see swimming pools in yards or sheds or steps or new parking lots, you know, houses.
Yeah, the 6-inch is great for towns that aren't looking for that detailed, you know, utility information. But for everything else, it's great.
I also wanted to mention that one of my ideas is to, you know, for example, there's still many members in Hancock County that I'd like to reach, many municipalities. And I was wondering, you know, instead of just having the municipality pay the entire amount, is if there's, you know, oh, I don't know, Chamber of Commerce's or nonprofits or, you know, utilities firms that would, you know, help chip in, because all of a sudden, you know, you get 3 or 4 funders that are doing $1,000 or $2,000 that can really add up and might sway a community. So I didn't mean to get back on that topic, but it was just, you know, anything goes, looking for ways to make this program because viable for everybody.
Claire, can communities buy up after the flight is done, or do you need to know ahead of time so that the right amount of the right level of photography can be taken?
Okay, so this spring's already done, and I'm working on next spring 2021 and spring of 2022. So if your county has already been flown, you can buy up, and you would be flown one of those 2 years. If your county has not been flown, well then let's see how we can get them involved.
Okay, well, that's about all the time we have today. Thank you so much, Claire. It was a great presentation and very informative. And we are excited that folks are interested in these virtual lunch and learns, and I think it's a great vehicle that we can use to continue to promote GIS and GIS education in Maine. Like I said, especially during these crazy times, but hopefully into the future as well. So we have a couple of topics already scheduled. I believe the next one is June 10th, and we'll be sending out the registration information for that on the Maine Climate Council. And then we're looking to do more on the GeoLibrary data portal in July, but we need other ideas for future talks. So if you have any, or if you would like to present, please let us know. You can reach us at megugboard@gmail.com. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Judy. And everybody, enjoy this beautiful weather and have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.